Hello, Chiefs Kingdom, and welcome to the Arrowhead Kingdom Chiefs cast live from the Wolf Den. I'm Chris.
And I'm Josh, and today we're going to be talking about the roster. And a big reminder that all Chiefs fans are invited to join us for game day. Visit arrowheadkingdom.org to learn more about your group and find your local chapter. And please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to our channel.
Today, talking with us about your Kansas City Chiefs, we have Darvin Walls from the Red and Gold Report. Welcome, Darvin.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. It's awesome to be on here talking some Chiefs roster with you guys today.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're, of course, presented by Complete Weddings and Events, your leading provider of photo, video, DJ, photo booth, lighting, and coordination services. Visit them at completewedo.com. And so as we talk about the roster, there's a handful of things that I think you kind of have to unpack. And it's starting with a group of 90 that goes to a camp, and you have to cut down to almost half of that number before it's all said and done. And you bring a little bit of unique experience in that you've actually been part of that process at one point, and you gotta watch kind of a lot of years of it growing up. So let's kind of talk about that a little bit. What are your connections to the process and the team?
Yeah. I grew up when I was growing up. My dad was coach for the Chiefs from the late '80s to 2007. So I just grew up knocking around Arrowhead, hanging around in the war room, all of that, and then was with the personnel department for a brief time in the mid 2000s. So yeah, it's interesting. I think one of the things that you see at this time of year is that we tend to think positionally, and the end of the roster a lot of times fills out as a function of the whole team. So there's pieces and parts that maybe fall together differently, not just because of one position, but because of how many players you want to maybe keep at a different position, which I think happened this year, the wide receiver. So
wide receiver and tight end ended up with four tight ends. I can't recall a single time that I've seen a team do that.
No, so I think me and everybody else was expecting 6 wide receivers and 3 tight ends, particularly with all the guys that were playing well at the end of the roster there at wide receiver. I mean, Marcus Kemp seemed to have a great preseason in camp. And so you were thinking, okay, is it Fountain and Kemp? And they ended up really liking Fortson and the conversion from wide receiver to tight end. And so that's what I'm talking about with, sometimes these things, they're not just a function of one position. Maybe you short wide receiver because you wanted to keep that one extra tight end because you knew you were going to keep Kelsey, obviously, right? Blake Bell's a great backup. You spend a draft pick on Noah Gray. He wasn't amazing in the preseason, but he was really good in training camp. But then if you fall in love with Fortson at the end of at the end of that tight end, instead of letting him go, maybe you have to let go of one of those wide receivers that you really like and wanted to keep around the team. So that's how the roster sometimes plays out at the end of it. You short one position to help out another, but or because you like a guy in a different position. But yeah, I definitely think that happened between wide receiver and tight end this year.
Yeah, so it definitely makes sense that you end up keeping the player you really like. So is that pretty common where it's the player and you figure out how to make the spot fit? That's more of the approach when you're putting a team together.
Yeah. I think it's a thing that's an ongoing discussion between coaching side and the personnel side. The coaches saying, hey, maybe one of the coaches really falls in love with an extra player. Like maybe this year the tight end coach said, okay, I know we're gonna have Kelsey, Bell, and Gray here, but this Fortson guy, there's something special here. He's a converted wide receiver. He can run. He's lanky. He's growing into his body still. We have some potential. If we let him go, he's probably not going to make it to the practice squad. So then he's got to go talk to the wide receiver coach and convince him to short his position one player. And then they've got to come down with the personnel department. So it's a lot of guys kind of getting together behind closed doors, talking about this sort of thing and putting it up on the board and seeing how it's all going to work out.
So it's really no different than the type of stuff that goes on in a corporate organization.
Oh yeah. It's all those meetings where you're trying to kind of see how the pieces fall together.
Yeah, meetings to have meetings.
Yeah, well, and there's also a game to be played with. Who do we think is going to fall through the waivers and actually make it to the practice squad. Because if somebody gets picked up, because we cut him, but we thought he was going to make it to the practice squad, well, we might have lost a good player. So who do we think we can hide and stash, and who do we think is actually going to get snatched up if we let him go? If we waive him, we don't want to be out that guy. So you're kind of protecting yourself based on what you think. You saw Darwin Thompson get waived and picked up by the Buccaneers. That's a good example right there, right? So they had the discussion of he might not make it to our practice squad. He actually signed with the Bucs practice squad instead.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't even think that it was anything. I think he made it through waivers and then he picked the Bucs practice squad over
Right?
ours.
Yeah, that is right. That's right.
That kind of had a vibe of trying to stick it to us a little bit when I read that.
A little bit.
Just a little bit. Okay, so a good example of somebody that you like that you let fall to the practice squad, because we were able to keep Cornell Powell, correct? On the practice squad?
I did. I have not checked up on who made it today, the practice squad. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I thought I saw it earlier today that he made it to the practice squad. So that could have been what that situation was there, where it's we like him and we think that we can hold on to him, but there was no way that we were going to be able to hold on to Fortson.
Yeah, I think that's probably the case with that position. Yeah.
Got it. Yeah. So when you're putting a roster together, how much did the special teams portion of things come into play?
Yeah, it definitely does. It particularly comes into play in the back end of your roster. You can justify a starter and sometimes that immediate backup. Maybe you've got an older wide receiver and he's like, man, I'm not playing special teams, but he's like your third wide receiver, maybe even fourth. You're like, okay, we can work around that. But what if you work your way a little further down the roster? You're talking that fourth, fifth wide receiver, or that fourth or fifth linebacker, and particularly even your third or fourth defensive back. That guy has to play special teams. I think he saw that, a little frustration with our special teams coordinator, Todd, with Robinson this year, thinking, I know this guy's going to make the roster, but kind of frustrated with special teams. But if you can't play special teams, you're just not going to make the back end of the roster. And the back end is really what we're talking about right now, come this time of the year. And
Gotcha.
those guys are going to end up playing. And those guys are going to a few of them are going to end up playing significant time. But in the meantime, they've got to play special teams. They've got to play special teams. So they've got to contribute. And if they can't, you're going to find somebody who wants to. And part of that is just will. Well, I mean, you get a lot of these guys that they were the star in their college team. They never had to play. They haven't played special teams since high school. And you're like, oh, yeah, go play gunner. Me play gunner? I haven't played gunner since I was 14 years old, man. I want to play gunner.
Yeah.
I want to get out. I want to start. You're like, no. And if you don't want to do that, you can go flip burgers. It's it's that easy of a decision. So, yeah, for sure, man.
Yeah. So you, what year were you in camp and going through the whole process of everything?
It has been a while. Let me see. It was 06 or 07.
06 or 07. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, what does that look like during the time? Like, is there a set path that the coaching staff looks at? Like, by the time we get out of training camp, we're going to have a really good idea of where we're going to be going with the different positional groups. We'll see how the preseason games happen to go. I mean, talk a little bit about how you go in with the plan and how that changes a little bit.
Yeah. Well, what I saw was a very progressive process instead of steps, that every day you're ranking and re-ranking players and discussing how they actually played, even in training camp practices, preseason. And, this has been a few years now. I'm sure they do it all on sweet 4K screens, but we're still doing it on boards with cards and dry erase markers, right? And so you're one of the things I do is like grade players in camp. And so then you're just taking that to the guys that actually make the decisions. And they've got a depth chart with all the players up there, all 83 of them, 90 at one point. and they're moving that around. And you know, the Chiefs didn't do a ton of this training camp and preseason, but when you see a weak position, you might bring in another guy and suddenly he goes up there in the depth chart and you're trying to figure out where he goes into the equation. But you know, it's progressive. You move guys as they perform and don't. And actually, I think that's what we saw with Devon Key really throughout training camp and preseason. As he came in, I saw he made it to the practice squad, which is great.
Yeah,
he came in undrafted, so he's, you know, you got your board up. He's at the very bottom of the board. He starts playing well in training camp, right? So now he's moving his way past other players. So he gets up there, he's like running second string at the end of, you know, at training camp. But then preseason hit, dude gets burnt multiple times, like just got really taken advantage of in coverage. So he starts to fall back down and he falls under the threshold of where how many safeties you figured you were going to keep. And suddenly he's getting waived when he was a guy who worked up. So it's just progressive. It can, those guys can go up and down and fluctuate, you know, besides of course your big time all pro guys and your starters that they're not going anywhere. They don't even have to show up at training camp. You know they're going to start. So yeah.
Got it. Yeah, Travis Kelce's probably gotten to that point, I'd say.
Yeah,
we mentioned him earlier. We think we'll keep him.
Yeah.
So given watching the preseason, watching all the spring training, the camp and everything like that, who would you say was the biggest shock that they made the team and the most disappointing cut from your perspective?
Yeah. So biggest shock. Well, sometimes I have a different opinion on a player than the team does, but sure. I know that they have that opinion, so I'm not shocked. And so there's some of those players like Williams, second string running back, and I just have a different opinion. So it's not shocking they kept him, but I have a different opinion on him. So that's not shocking. But I'd say, you know, the disappointing and shocking one for me was seeing Tim Ward cut. I thought he played really well in preseason. I know he's going against backups, but I thought he outplayed what we've seen Okafor being able to play, particularly in pass rush. I thought he had a fire under him, better agility, better burst around the corner. To me, it just wasn't worth bringing in Okafor back and then cutting a guy like Tim Ward, who I thought showed a lot of promise. So I would say the shocking or most disappointing cut to me was Tim Ward. That, him, and Derek Gore. I thought Gore played really well throughout the preseason. Had over 80 yards running, over 80 yards catching. Showed a lot of burst that Williams didn't. I would have loved to have seen him keep Gore over Williams, but I know that Williams is the entrenched second stringer there. Surprised about the Fortson move. I like him, but I'm just surprised that was definitely, you know, that you keep 4 tight ends. I haven't seen him do that for a while. So to me, that was what the surprising piece of who they kept and who they released.
Yeah, Chris, what are your thoughts on that? I know that we've got a nice column from you coming out about Fortson, so you can maybe preview that a little bit. But what are your thoughts on shocking cut, shocking roster make?
Yeah, I'm right there on Tim Ward. I think if there's a flaw that Steve Spagnuolo has, is that he tends to go with guys that he trusts more in his system than I think he does with ability. I mean, hence why we didn't see Willie Gay a whole lot last year. And unfortunately, we're not going to see him for the first 3 weeks of this year. But I mean, I thought Tim Ward flashed. I also thought in week 17 last year too. I mean, it's not like he doesn't have experience in the system. So yeah, he was taken up immediately by the Jets. So we'll see how that goes. As far as surprise goes, I wasn't so surprised about Fortson after, I would say, watching him in the Arizona game. Because the one thing that I was hearing about him early on in camp is, you know, his blocking just was not where it needed to be. And he was out there putting a hat on a hat really well for Derek Gore in the fourth quarter against the Cardinals, and that really stood out to the point where even the commentators in the NFL Network were talking about. I mean, Trent Green was all over it too. So, I mean, and yeah, as far as my column goes, I have a greater appreciation for what Jordy Fortson, I guess, the path that he's taken to the NFL, because it was not as celebrated and as glorious as I thought it would have been through his college career.
Yep, got it. And then doing a draft pick not making the roster, how common has that been in your guys' opinion? It doesn't seem like I see a draft pick get cut very often, and it's usually pretty big news when it does. We haven't done that in a number of years, correct?
It's the first time under Brett Beach that this has happened.
Got it. So, Darvin, when going through camp, is there generally an expectation that the draft picks all make it?
I think it's really different depending on what organization you're talking about and what personnel department you're talking about. Veach has felt compelled to keep around those draft picks, which has generally paid off for him. It's generally been a very good idea. There's other teams that are like, hey, we'll cut you if you're a third rounder, like we don't care. And that, weird things have happened where even fourth rounders have been cut their rookie year. So I think it's strange only because of Veach's track record of keeping those guys around. I think it's different, department to department, organization to organization, but he just didn't play well. I mean, that was just what it came down to. It wasn't like there was an act to grind against them or a coach had it out for him. I mean, he didn't play well. And there were some guys that played better at a few guys that played better at his position that were vying for that last roster spot. So I definitely agreed with the move. It's better to keep Fountain, who's clearly more ready to get in there on the roster instead of just keeping Powell around because. So yeah.
Yeah, got it. We also lost a draft pick from last year in Bo P. Keys, who signed on with the Colts. Yeah, I can't say that I paid a ton of attention to him in the preseason, but it was kind of weird for me to see his name on that final cut down list.
Yeah.
Did you agree with that move, or were you graded him differently as well?
No, I did. He really played very sparingly last year, but he actually played decently when he played.
Yeah.
So that was it was one of those things of like, how do you grade a guy that's only getting in for basically half a game in 17 weeks? So it's such a small sample size. But in that small sample size, he played pretty decently for, I believe he was a 7th rounder.
Yep.
So what was he?
No, he was 7th.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I was agreeing with you.
So, okay. Yeah. So Layman's, whatever you say, I think it was just a toss up between those guys. So I didn't think either of them looked awesome. I think, other guys like Character didn't play well, but Keys and Layman, it was a toss up between them probably.
Got it. So I'll ask this question next. Of the position groups that we have, which one do you think we go into this season with the best, we improve this position prognosis, and which one do you think that we did that the least to?
Yeah. You want me to take this one first or Chris?
We'll let you take this one first.
Okay.
And then we'll have Chris weigh on. So what position group do you think that we got better from last season to this season?
Yeah, I think it's interior offensive line. I don't want to just take the whole offensive line. And I know that Brown was the huge trade at left tackle, but really, and I really like him. I think he's going to be awesome. Loved watching his dad with the Browns back in the day. Guy's going to be great. But Niang's a bit of a question mark, so I don't want to go tackle, but let's go interior offensive line. I mean, Joe Thuney is one of the most underrated offensive linemen in the entire league.
Yep.
And not only is he underrated, he is precisely what the Chiefs needed, because the Chiefs needed two particular attributes in offensive linemen that fit their system well. A, they need a guy who can move. They're more of a zone blocking, system. And B, they needed a guy who's durable. And Tooney has been incredibly endurable in his career with the Patriots previously to the Chiefs. We needed someone who's just going to stay healthy and be out there, and we got it. And we needed someone who was going to be able to move, and we got it. And he specializes in pass protection, and like that's the reason you spend money on those guys, is protect Mahomes. So that is such a huge improvement at left guard over trying to cycle through Allegretti or Wisniewski or whoever comes up. Like putting Tooney in there, such a huge improvement. Creed Humphrey, I had him a back into the first round player, so the drop to the second half of the second round. I thought that was a phenomenal steal in the draft. A phenomenal steal in the draft. If he'd have gone to the first round, I would have been happy with it. So at that end part of the first round. So to get that guy, and he's been amazing. I think he's graded almost an 84 pass blocking in the preseason. I mean, that's what we need. And then at right guard, you got Trey Smith, and he dropped because of some health concerns, and also Tennessee program is a hot mess, right? And so there was some like
it's kind of rude to hot messes.
Yeah, right. It is rude to hot messes because I'm a hot mess. So he dropped for some reasons that had nothing to do with the film. You turn on the film, the dude is a big brawler at guard and should have been a second rounder. It just is. I believe in the guy. I think he's going to be really good. And so to get a second rounder in the sixth round, to get a second rounder or first rounder in the second round, plug those guys in day one. And, we all watched. It wasn't just skill factor that got these guys pushed around the Super Bowl last year. They just didn't have the size and strength. Now you've got 2 6'6" guards. You got a 6'4" center. And it's bigger guys. It's more athletic guys. It's more prestigious guys all around. That interior offensive line got better. And it's not just the first stringers. Bring Austin Blythe in to back up center. Tons of experience starting for the Rams. Again, a veteran guy who could pass block. He can also shift to guard. He's started at guard also. Yeah. So you've got that depth piece at center. And then, of course, Allegretti goes from a struggling starter to, hey, now we got a backup with some actual experience. This is great, right? And then, of course, you've also got Laurent Duvernay-Tardif, the French doctor, the doctor. And I don't know if he'll be with the team in 4 weeks. If I was the GM, I would trade him because I can get by with Blythe and Allegretti as the backups. Maybe I can turn around for a third or fourth rounder. If not, though, I mean, those three backups, Blythe and Allegretti and Tardif, very experienced. That's a great backup to, have in here.
Don't forget about Darvin. Don't forget about Kyle Long too.
Oh yeah, and of course, yeah. I've given up hope, but yes.
Yeah, I mean,
I've given up hope on being healthy, Chris. I hope. No,
but still, yeah. Just to go on your point. I mean, they're really deep on the interior now. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are we going to be opening some good holes for Clyde this year, maybe too? Is that it? Yeah. That'll be a change that I would love to see as well. Nothing I'd love to see more than getting a running game going.
Yeah, that would be huge. Huge.
Yeah. Got it. So, Chris, do you pretty much agree with that? It sounds like you're pretty on board with that offensive interior line.
Oh, it's really obvious that the offensive line made the biggest jump. I think the one that is really interesting is the cornerback position, because I mean, I saw a lot of fans freaking out about how we didn't re-sign Bashaud Breeland and how we're going to, make up for Bashaud Breeland. And lo and behold, they make the trade for Mike Hughes. Last year, they made the trade for DeAndre Baker. Just to point out, I mean, they were able to cut a draft pick in Bo Peep Keys. I mean, they go You got Ward, you've got Baker, you've got Hughes, you've got Snead, and you've got Fenton. That's a really deep and reliable five right there. So I think the cornerback position is going to be better than this year than it was last year.
Got it. All right, so Chris, where do you think that we didn't improve enough? And I think I know what your answer to this one is, but
Oh, I'm going to say wide receiver, actually.
okay.
You think I was going to say linebacker?
I did.
No, I think we did. The problem is that Gay is hurt, but I think at wide receiver, I think the big thing was, okay, who are we going to find to replace Sammy Watkins? And we didn't. We lost out on a few free agents, especially Juju Smith-Schuster.
Yep.
So to me, that was the one that took a step back. And I think the offense is still going to be awesome. Don't get me wrong, but it was obvious that the team was trying to find an X receiver when they were making a bid for Juju Smith-Schuster. It just didn't work out.
Hey, Darwin, what are your thoughts?
On the receivers, or just on another position that I think we should still be concerned about?
Yeah, position that you think we should still be concerned about. I mean, by all means, if you have anything to add to wide receiver that Chris was talking about.
I think the receivers are interesting because we've basically got promise over track record right now.
Sure.
Player I'd be interested in bringing is Brown. He just got cut by the Raiders. Super fast guy, veteran. I mean, the dude could sign for like 3 bags of peanuts right now. He's going to be cheap. He seems to fit our profile as a fast receiver and a speedy guy that creates space. I'd like to see him bring that in, because right now Pringle and Hardman are more just potential guys. I don't think Robinson is starter caliber. I don't think he's going to be. I'd like to see like a Brown brought in. So other than the wide receiver, I would reluctantly go maybe in. And I reluctantly go there because like Chris has been so amazing. Like Jones has been just phenomenal switching to in from tackle. He's got question marks about him, like, is he going to lose? One of the things that you love about Chris Jones is he can bull rush right in the face of the quarterback. And even if he doesn't get there, he gets his hands up, and so now he's blocking that view downfield. He's batting balls down. It's huge for the team. And so my worry was, okay, you lose that immediate pressure he creates, but dropping down in weight, he's looked a lot better. So or a lot better than you'd imagine a tackle moving to end, a lot quicker. I don't believe in Frank Clark. I don't think Frank Clark should be on the team for a few different reasons, but I would like to see him cut, but I don't think we did enough to replace him. I think he's been poor on the field compared to what he's paid for. I think there's been too many off-field things, and I think it was his time to go this offseason, and we didn't do it. So obviously with the gun charges multiple times, it's just an irresponsibility. Like, close the Uzi bag. Just close the bag. Like, probably don't own an Uzi. A. B, you got to know that Kansas gun laws and California gun laws are a little bit different. They're a little bit different. So you got to know what state you're in. And if you don't, I mean, come on, dude. And then the truth is, he's just not been good on the field. Like, he's a backup caliber player, in my opinion. I think that's how he's graded. PFF would back me up on that. So I wanted to see him replace this season, and I think end is so important. Now, I think we've gotten around it basically by moving Jones to end and then signing Jerron Reed. And you saw Noddy really develop last year. So, okay, now we're fine at defensive tackle, bump Jones out. But man, I just wish we could have done better for the team and the city than to continue to have Frank Clark on the team. So I'd go in.
Fair enough. Chris, any thoughts at that? I'm not seeing a lot of disagreement coming from your face.
Well, no, one interesting thought experiment that was put out there. I was listening to podcasts this week is, who would you rather have right now, Tim Ward or Frank Clark? And it's going to be interesting to see what Tim Ward, if Tim Ward goes up to the Jets and he has 6 sacks and Frank Clark has 6 or 7 sacks. I mean, it's it's frustrating. I think financially it would have been impossible to cut Clark, but I can't help but keep an eye on Tim Ward and wonder if we could get the same production for a hell of a lot less cap hit.
Yeah, I mean, Frank Clark's going to be on the books for $5.8 million this year. He's got the salary bonuses of I think it's over $5. I'm trying to look it up right now, but over $5 million a year for the next 3 years. But we restructured him, so he has an additional like $1.5 million every year for the next 3 years. So you combine that, and you kind of come away with a net loss this year. So if you trade him, all that bonus drops into this year, and then next season, 2022. Suddenly you're like, oh, we got $26 million cap space now. Yeah. So that's just silly not to. And there's some questions about whether they could have filed for getting out of some of that guarantee due to his off-field incidents, it's called. It's indiscretion. Yeah. We would call him ish in the personnel department. He's got some ish, short for issues.
Some ish. I like that.
Nice. He's got some ish, man. He's got some ish. So you could have maybe kind of squirmed out of some of that guaranteed money, but we didn't do it.
So how often does an NFL organization pull that lever where they try to get out of guaranteed money, and how often is it successful?
Really not often. I mean, I think the last time we saw it and the most prominent was Antonio Brown with the Raiders, and that was after like the helmet incident and the racial slur attacking Mayock incident and all sorts of stupidity. And they squeezed out some of that, and then of course he went and did it to the Patriots too. So there were a couple things with his guarantees that people tried to squeak out of, but really, you don't want to do that because players don't want to play for you then. I think one of the, when Andrew Luck retired from the Colts had a big decision to make. Like, do we hand the guy the bonus he earned? Do we ask for the money back that part of the money he already took that we legally could? And Irsay was like, no, we're not going to do that. Like, you did right by organization. You're a good guy. You keep it. And players know that, and they're willing to sign with you. You try to screw players, they're going to be like, man, okay, well, about as many free agents will sign with you as they will with Jacksonville. Like, no one's coming there. So you don't want to do it, but man, like Frank, dude, multiple illegal gun charges in the same offseason. And
in 4 months,
Yeah, and you stink on the field. You stink.
Exactly.
Like, come on. Like, to me, that would have been justified. One of those, real. Well, actually, and the crummy one this offseason that we saw was Juwan James. So Juwan James gets hurt off the field.
Oh yeah.
And
with the Broncos, right?
Yes, with the Broncos. So he's the right tackle. Signs them a couple years ago. Dude's making all sorts of money, and he stinks it up on the field, right? He wasn't good. But then he was injured most of the time too. Then he gets hurt off the field. And then he's like, well, y'all told me to be working out because of COVID away from the team. I was away from the team. The Broncos are like, you've been ripping us off since day one. We want our money back. So it's but then how does that, so the Broncos, they're like, well, we can save, I forgot what he was on the book. It was like 10 to 15 million, right?
Yeah.
We can save 10 to 15 million dollars to get that guarantee back. Okay, Broncos, you can get that back so you can go sign a Fuller at corner. Great. Now every free agent that thinks about signing with the Broncos is gonna be like, okay, do I really want to be with an organization that might do that too? So I think there's a balancing game to do between how is my team going to be perceived by potential free agents and the money I could make this year. And I thought it was outbalanced in the way of let's cut this guy with Clark this year. So
yeah, there's a difference between, hey, aren't playing very well and you couldn't find the zipper on your Uzi bag. I mean, you would think that you would think that somebody else would probably look at that, and you would get the reasonable man, I think, is illegally speak for that. So yeah. Anyway, so I guess before we get into our final takes, do you have any other just observations from the roster you want to talk about?
What do you think, Chris?
I feel really good about the roster. It's not perfect. I don't think there's ever going to be such a thing as a perfect roster, but going into this season, at least it feels like the team is a bit more physical, especially in offense. And I think, Josh, you were kind of pointing this out, is they can adapt now to teams playing too deep, at safety, and not allowing teams to just basically play 5 or 6 in the box and just try and stack them up against the pass. So from that standpoint, that's really awesome and exciting to me. And then on defense, I just even despite the fact that we're weak on edge, I still like the depth as on the defensive line as a whole. And I think Spags will figure out a way to scheme up some pressure even through the secondary. The only spot that I don't feel great about right now is linebackers still, because it just takes one injury and then all of a sudden you've got Ben Neiman and Damian Harris playing a lot of snaps. But I mean, other than that, I really do like how they're going to look in the trenches. I think they're going to be pretty stout this season.
Yeah, I'd say one of my last thoughts. I totally agree with that, Chris. Man, it's way more physical. Man. The position I think we should be watching the first 3 to 4 weeks is linebacker. We have struggled at linebacker for years now, and it's going to be interesting because Willie Gay has a ton of potential. I think he's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
I think he's what you want in the modern day linebacker, but he's hurt. We jump up and get Nick Bolton. Nick Bolton had a early second round to mid second round grade. We get him in the back half of the second round, so he's a steal, but he's not starting right now because of Anthony Hitchens. So Anthony Hitchens is interesting because this is going into his 4th year with the Chiefs. He has graded extremely poorly the first 3 years, but he knows the system. He knows the system, and he knows what everyone on the field is supposed to do. If any rookie doesn't know what, like, rookie corner could be like, dude, what am I doing this play? And Hitchens would be like, oh yeah, he knows what all 11 guys have to do. So he's out there because of his knowledge, but he stinks. he's not good. You watch Hitchens, just take some plays to watch Hitchens. When he gets into it, it's always 10 yards down the field. He rarely makes a tackle, for a loss kind of a situation. But there is value in having a veteran who tells everyone what they're supposed to do. The question is going to be with Willie Gay hurt, because you start 2 linebackers in the modern day NFL. So with Willie Gay hurt, Nick Bolton is going to slide into the starting position. How well is Bolton going to play? Because Bolton could be amazing. He really could. He's more of a thumper than Willie Gay. He's more physical. He's more of that knowledge, cerebral player. Gay is more of that speedster cover, play by the seat of your pants. I think they could be an awesome duo for the next decade. But is Bolton going to play so well that when Willie Gay comes back, the coaches finally put Hitchens to the bench? I know they won't, but it's just like my hope because Hitchens just isn't good out there. I understand why he's got out there, but even if he doesn't get to the bench this season, if Bolton can prove himself in the first quarter of the season, I mean, Hitchens is on the books for like $12.5 million next season. That's not going to fly. We're way over the cap. He's gonna have to either restructure or get cut. And if Bolton can come out, even if Bolton can't start the rest of the year because they keep Hitchens in after Gay comes back from injury, I think it'd be very interesting to as a little experiment to see what happens if we've got to cut Hitchens after the season.
Interesting. And I think that'll be a perfect segue into final takes. And as our guest, you get to go first. So what is your final take for this week?
Yes. So my final take is we've all been watching maybe just me. All of us have been watching the NFL Top 100. It's not super accurate, but it's a really fun thing that the NFL does every year, NFL Network. Yep. You get a bunch of players together, they vote on the top 100 players. Of course, Mahomes is number one. He should have been number one for years now. He's number one. We're all pumped up about it. A bunch of players for the Chiefs traded. Yeah, I know. He's fourth 2 years in a row. Fourth. Come on. A bunch of players for the Chiefs made the top 100. I believe that, you got Jones, Kelsey, Mahomes, Matthew. I think Tooney even made it in there right at the end. But my last take is just the next Kansas City Chief that is going to make it into the top 100 someday. So who's one of those top guys? We know the Chiefs roster is top heavy. Who's the next guy that might sneak in there that 2-3 years down the road, his name is going to be announced in the top 100? Mine is L'Jarius Sneed. L'Jarius is going into his second year. He's got every tool you need. He's one of the fastest corners in the league, 6 feet. He's a tall guy. He's lanky. He graded as the best rookie cover corner last year. I mean, a lot of guys got picked before him. And so he's a guy that I could think he's got all the tools to make it in there. And he's already grading really well in coverage.
Yep.
So he could be a guy that could get in that top 100. Of course, it helps to be in a big market team, and it helps to be a high draft pick because it's also about hype. But his on-field play, I would have to go with L'Jarius Sneed as the next Chief. They could make it into that NFL top 100.
Mm-hmm.
Got it. My hope is McCole Hardman, just because I want him to play well.
That would be phenomenal.
Yeah.
All right, Chris, what's your final take?
Okay, so I saw something that I haven't really witnessed before in my life, and that is the absolute clown show that is the New York Mets and their fan base. So
Royals.
That's right, go Royals. Thank goodness. We are not the Mets, but yeah, in case you don't know, although this has been all over the news, the Mets have retaliated against their fans, namely Javier Baez, by essentially giving a thumbs down every time they do something well. And this started, I think, about a week ago. And it's pretty ironic that the face of this is Javier Baez, considering that he was traded from the Cubs to the Mets to help propel them into the playoffs. And then what happens after he gets traded over to the Mets promptly go 9-19 in the month of August. And I mean, who in their right mind would think the city of New York would actually be okay with a 9-19 month, especially when they were thinking playoffs? But anyway, where I'm going with this is the whole fact that, I'll focus just on New York Met fans have absolutely any and every right to boo whenever and whomever they want to. They're ticket paying fans. Like I said, this is a team that was on the cusp of the playoffs. Jacob deGrom was having like an all-time season. And then, they signed Francisco Lindor to a stupidly insane contract. So yeah, they're pretty much on edge as far as, wanting success. This needed to work and it's not, and the fans are upset. So, Javier Baez I just, especially for a guy that's hasn't even been with the team for, I think, even a month or two, to be in a press conference explaining this and trying to justify it is just, it's an absolute joke to me. Now, I'll finish with this. On the flip side, something I don't understand, I don't know if I will ever truly understand, is why would you spend your good hard-earned money to go to a sporting event and boo your own team? It's just lunacy to me. I mean, if you got to be miserable enough to actually want to go to a game just so you can make yourself heard. But I mean, if you really want to make the team hear your voice, apathy is the best way to show it. And if there are no fans in the stands, believe me, it's going to ring true to the front office for sure, but the players are going to start to notice it too. So all I can say is, if you're fed up with your team, don't spend money just to go out there and make your voice heard. Save your money, because it's going to have a bigger impact as far as your voice with your displeasure.
Maybe they
Yeah.
should hire Ron Artest to do crowd control or something.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, the Mets have been a interesting thing to watch. And another completely unrelated news: they are 5 games out of the wild card. So there you go. And actually, I believe they're 5 games behind the Cincinnati Reds, who are in the wild card spot. The Padres are half a game out. I would think the Padres are probably going to close the deal, but the Dodgers and Giants right now are tied, and they're 13 and a half games up on all of that. So it would be a pretty monumental collapse for the Mets to not make it, because at one point I believe they were actually winning the East. So
They were. That's what spurred on the frustration.
Yep. All right. Yeah. My final take. I just want to give a big thanks to the internet here this last weekend. I just started to notice some things that I love the internet for. The milk crate challenge, I didn't know that was a thing until I spent some time on YouTube, and the level of stupidity is just great. So the same people that brought you the Tide Pod challenge are now bringing you the milk crate challenge. You get to watch people potentially die in real time instead of having it be slow. So way to go, internet. And the other thing, this Bishop Sycamore thing.
Oh yeah,
gosh, yes.
So funny to look at. And you just look at the story and it's like, who does this? Who does this? I mean, I picture there's probably been times I've been sitting at a bar with friends going, it'd be funny is if we made up our own high school and we blah, blah, blah. And we went out and tried to play games on ESPN and stuff. It's just like, yeah. Then you wake up the next morning. It's like, what the hell were we talking about? And these guys went out and did it.
Yeah.
When people are telling the story of the quick and brutal demise of ESPN, the dumpster fire that is ESPN, and YouTubers taking over the sports networking world, they will, that game will go down on the timeline before the demise of ESPN.
Absolutely.
just to show how ESPN likes to hold themselves accountable, they're trying to push all their blame onto a marketing firm. So again, it's your 4 letters on the screen when I turn on the channel, not your marketing firm, ESPN. Own up to it. Seriously.
Yeah, exactly. Just say, hey, they came in with a really good proposal, and in our defense, they did win 58-0. So apparently they're legitimate something. I don't know.
Bunch of 20-somethings.
Yeah, a bunch of 20-somethings. Yeah, just I agree with you. It just it was a bad idea. We're sorry we did it. But anyway, thank you, internet. And big thanks again to our guest. And make sure you check out his podcast, which is on YouTube as well. It's called The Red and Gold Report. Like, share, and subscribe to his stuff as well. And like you said, we're as YouTubers is going to take over all the sports coverage and everything like that. So
yeah, subscribe to this channel, subscribe to Red and Gold Report, and go Chiefs, right?
Yeah, go Chiefs. Be part of the revolution.
Yeah.
Good night, everybody.
All right, go Chiefs.
Peace.
Go Chiefs.